And every single time that you say, oh, maybe that's me, what I want you to do is just make a hash mark on the piece of paper there. So here's your frontal cortex. So when you find that yourself moving slower there, if you're experiencing depression, depression is not a chemical issue, it's a frontal lobe issue. So if you've been diagnosed with depression, that's a frontal lobe issue. It means that there's brain damage and degeneration there. We look at mental sluggishness or laziness where we can't really quite think through things. We have a project and we can't really work through that project there. We have like a pile of papers on our desk and we can't really get through that pile of papers there. Full impulse control. We find people that have frontal lobe issues. They're the people that they cheat on their spouse. Just something happens and they cheat on their spouse. Or the kids with ADD, they have poor impulse control. They have frontal lobe issues there. One of the things that I look at when somebody comes into the office is I actually look at your handwriting. That gives me a very good indicator of how your brain is functioning there. I'm looking at, is it shaky, is it scratchy, is it tilted one direction and the other direction, is there no balance or coordination to it? Because as the handwriting goes away, so does the frontal lobe there. Poor social behavior. We start looking at, and we'll go into this in a second, when we start looking at some of these people that, for example, the man in Las Vegas. He had impulse control but poor social behavior judgment. His issue was a frontal lobe issue there. Does that make sense? It wasn't that he had bad thoughts or he just had something. He had a frontal lobe issue. It was a degenerative problem in his brain. And once we understand our actions are a result or a reflection of of the status of our brain, then we will take different actions there. If you're having problems doing math, when you used to do math in your head, now you're using your phone. Problems with learning new languages or actually learning math, like to understand math. And so if you think of a child in school, they're like, well, I'm just no good at math. It's probably because there's a frontal lobe issue going on there. We have to stop saying what we're good or we're not good at it. And in a second, we're going to talk about plasticity, but it's what we've developed there. Coordinated movements, such as dancing. These things right here are frontal lobe issues there. This is critical. This is the thing that separates us from almost every living creature out there, is these things right here, the ability to know right from wrong, when to do something and when not to do it, what's appropriate socially and what's not appropriate socially. The temporal lobe. This is the Alzheimer's lobe that we were talking about. So we have poor memory, but some of the indicators that you can find out are if you're having a conversation with somebody, you can't understand somebody when there's a lot of background noise going on. That's a very good indicator that there's damage that is occurring in the temporal lobe. So if the TV's going on and your wife calls you and you're like, what? You have to turn the TV down when you didn't used to have to do that? That's not a hearing issue, that's a temporal lobe issue there. We start looking at tinnitus or ringing in the ears. If you start having ringing in the ears, like an ee sound in your ears, that is a dire warning. That's a red flag warning, because when we start looking at that's a very big indicator of degeneration in that temporal lobe. If we start having weird fatigue shifts during the day where we're just so fatigued and we just can't figure out why. And then what we also find is that one of the problems with the temporal lobe, it regulates some of our circadian rhythms there. So we'll have problems like sleeping. We'll find ourselves moving into the night owl realm there. And we'll be up late at night and we'll be exhausted in the day there. All of our sleep-wake cycles start to get messed up there. Parietal lobe. Now this is that one that's right back here, feeling unstable in the darkness. So this is when you always walked in the dark, and now you start to put a nightlight in there, or you used to wear high heel shoes, and now you wear low heel shoes there. This is a big one because it's your body's awareness of where it is in space, and we find people that have reoccurrent like ankle injuries, for example. I have this chronic ankle injury. I keep on spraining this one ankle. Many times it's a parietal lobe issue there. Unable to recognize objects through touch, like where you're looking for in your backpack and you can't, or your briefcase and you can't. You're looking for something and you can't really find. You have to actually look to see what you're looking for, rather than just being able to use your hand, because for your brain should be able to tell you what it is because it has a memory there. And misjudging where you are in your environment. This is the clumsy kid. This is the person that, they'll be coming to the door right here and they'll walk into the door and they're like, oh, who put that door there, right? And we all say that sometimes, but those are big indicators. And so as you're starting to put these hashtags on your paper there, what I'm trying to do is give you more leverage. Cerebellum. cerebellum is the part that not only, this is incredibly important, the cerebellum actually stimulates that frontal lobe there. So when you're moving, it's stimulating your frontal lobe. When somebody has car sickness, when you have seasickness there, when you have a hard time with stripes or patterns, or if you walk into a room and there's wallpaper and that bothers you, that lets us know that there's a cerebellar issue, but it also means that we're also going to have a frontal lobe issue there too. The other thing that's important is poor balance, and so we find people get injured. The thought of the drunk test. If you get a DUI, it's not that you're drunk, it's that the alcohol interferes with your cerebellum being able to function. So anytime that you're actually drinking alcohol, you're interfering with your cerebellum. That's why you get the staggers, that's why you get the walks there. And the subtle shakes. This is a big thing, and we don't really realize this, but you would ask the people that you know, because we get used to it, but there's a little shake that we can start to develop. That little tremor there is a very good indicator, because the cerebellum regulates and it holds it keeps your body, your joint stable there. So if we're starting to get little shakes there, that's another indicator there. So hopefully nobody had a hashtag there. But if you did, that means that we got to do something about it. And that's what tonight's all about, a plan. And this plan is about teaching you how to understand the importance of your brain there. Oh, I forgot the occipital lobe. We'll see floaters. The occipital lobe is the one back here that controls vision. You'll start to see floaters in your vision. You'll start to have visual hallucinations. You'll look at something and you'll turn away from it, and you'll still see a little bit of the haze of the image in your visual pattern there. That's a big indicator there. The other thing is that being able to have a spatial relationship with things. By the way, the other thing is that like if you're trying to hang something and you kind of miss it, or you kind of put your coat on a hook and it kind of misses there. So these are all areas in the brain. And so what I want you to understand though is that the way that the brain works is that it consumes about 30% of the energy of our entire body. It's that important. This little 3-pound bag of tofu that sits right inside this skull right here, it literally consumes 30% of the energy of your entire body. It's that important. 90% of the information coming of that brain is actually information that's designed to suppress the stress response. Okay? Which is great. Isn't that interesting? And the other 10% is motor information. It's telling the body. It's the motor part of your body. But about 90% they estimate is about suppressing the stress response. So what ends up happening is if you look at a baby, what ends up happening, a baby doesn't have a fully developed brain. And because they don't have a fully developed brain, they're not able to they're not able to suppress that stress response. So they become incontinent. Right? Because if you scare somebody, what do? They go to the bathroom in their pants, right? So a baby is incontinent. They're not able to control that. You touch them and they startle. They're much more reactive to their environment. They have digestive issues. They have colic. They have all these types of things there. Their immune system doesn't work very well, because when your body's under stress, it suppresses your immune system. And so what we find is as the baby's brain develops and gets stronger, the same thing, then they're able to suppress all these things. They're able to control their bowel movements. Their digestive system gets better. That's why you don't feed a baby a Big Mac, because they just can't digest it, right? You should never feed a baby a Big Mac, by the way. But the reason why I put this picture up here is that's what happens when we get older, right? We startle a little bit easier. We get stressed out a little bit easier. We start getting constipated. We start losing bowel or bladder control. All aging is a reverting back to the state in our brain where our brain can't suppress that stress response system. That every single time that we damage our brain, we inhibit that process of suppressing that stress response system. And that is the scary thing.